Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome friends once again to our NPTEL MOOC module on health economics. So far we have been explaining the couple of lectures on economic evaluations. The various concepts of economic evaluations we already started. However, the details of economic evaluations should be followed very carefully. In this lecture, we are targeting for the readers to understand the principles of economic evaluation, what are the different types and how we can go for it. Hence, we have kept this as an introduction to the principles of economic evaluation. However, you need to follow what we did it earlier. In the previous two lectures of this week, we introduced economic evaluation using a highly theoretical approach, and we emphasized the different theories which are useful for economic evaluation. And this is very important because this has high intellectual directions, and the economic evaluation in particularly is it is quintessentially an applied technique, and arguably the main practical contribution economics makes a decision making in health and healthcare. And this is in continuation to our previous week also. We discussed on economics of health systems, and in this week also we are somewhere on the periphery emphasizing on the evaluation of the economic health system or understanding the health system through its evaluation. Hence, the target of this unit, this particular lecture, is to introduce the principles of economic evaluation and their types. The remaining lectures of this week act as a bridge between theoretical underpinnings, which we already started in the previous two lectures, and also their practical applications of economic evaluation that we will learn in the next 2 weeks. And also in the 2 weeks basically on their monetary evaluation, non-monetary evaluations, there are different methods, even including health efficiency. Okay. So, these are all aspects we will be addressing. Then in the introduction of this principle, how to understand health economic evaluation. This is in the context of health that can be termed as the comparative analysis of alternative courses of action in terms of both, that is health consequences and their cost. So, cost or health outcomes are indeed important. Economic evidence is increasingly being used for informing health policies. Consequently, ensuring the best value for money is placed high on the agenda by any government in the globe, and that too will identify their economic considerations. Hence, the important questions that are relevant are like which services to be provided, or which services to provide, what amount should be provided, at what stage it should be best to provide, and to whom it should be provided. These need to be answered through our principles or the explanations. This further requires a different kind of evidence, like can it work, which generally refers to efficacy, and to what extent will it work, that is related to effectiveness. Is it worth investing compared to other things that can be done using the same amount of investment, which concerns with cost effectiveness or efficiency. Hence, the three aspects will be identified. One is efficacy, can it work, okay, that is all about, and effectiveness, to what extent, if it works then to what extent it works. Then is cost efficiency, cost effectiveness is really important, and that is why we usually deal with efficiency analysis. All these questions and evidence of their validity and reliability require an appropriate understanding of health economic evaluations. Lack of understanding about the underlying principles of health economics evaluation may result in different analysis, like use of inappropriate type of analysis, then use of inconsistent methodologies. So, lack of understanding about the underlying principles of health economics evaluation may result in the inappropriate type of analysis or inconsistent methodologies, which may tend to inappropriate policy decisions and benefiting none, that might happen and so let us understand the principles of health economic evaluation as a comprehensive way. Hence, there are two types of economic evaluation. One is called partial, another is called full. So, we will clarify what is called partial. This study examines, like the partial economic evaluation examines only cost or consequences, but do not look at both together or related cost to consequences, or I mean basically one and its implication on another is not actually linked in the partial economic evaluation. Second aspect of the partial economic analysis is it examines only cost and consequences, but only evaluate a single course of action at a single, not comparing, but do not compare with other alternative options. If any, both are actually taken like cost and consequences, but it only examines one program at a time. However, in the full one, other aspects are true, like it emphasizes the comparative aspects or of the alternative courses of action in terms of both cost as well as consequences, that is outcomes or effects. You can refer to Drummond 2005 paper and study. Full economic evaluation studies aim to describe, measure and value all relevant alternative courses of action, that is their intervention of X versus comparator, that is Y, and their resource inputs and consequences. And partial, hence partial examines only cost or consequence. It has of course the discussion, like either it takes into account of cost analysis or costing description, or at a time it only checks the outcome or consequence description. If any it checks, it will check at a program, only a single program, not in a comparative context. So far as the cost analysis is concerned, some of the example we used to encounter is like cost of illness analysis, budget impact analysis, etc. Coming to the partial, but partial even if it considers cost as well as consequence, but it only emphasizes a single program, not identifying whether this program is better as compared to other. That is the part of full economic evaluation. So, this is what cost to outcome description, but for a single program. These are all discussed here. Partial evaluation or partial economic evaluation either explicitly or implicitly ignores the comparator, which may overlook relevant cost or consequences, and that do not allow comparison to relevant policy alternatives. Okay. Coming to the full economic evaluation, It examines both cost and consequences, also all alternative courses of actions. There are different types of full economic evaluation. They are basically defined as cost benefit analysis as CBA, cost effectiveness analysis as called CEA, and cost utility analysis called CUA, cost minimization analysis as CMA, and cost consequence analysis as CCA. Out of 5, 3 are mostly performed, okay, and our last 2 are least performed. These different evaluations, these 5 are based on similar principles. At first they appear interchangeably but differ in their fundamental methodology and interpretations. We will clarify all those details. Let us compare these two together, partial economic evaluation analysis and full economic evaluation analysis. We start by the HEA framework, that is called health economic analysis. It requires interventions through cost and consequence, and there are roles of comparators as well. Comparators, if we actually compare with another program, and their evaluation again through the cost and consequences. When only intervention is being discussed for their cost and outcome, that is precisely the part of partial equilibrium analysis. Okay. This is what, and entire one we also take the count of comparator as well to understand the full program existing, whether the single program is really the best or not. In that case, we have to take the help of comparator. So, that is why it is called full economic evaluation. So, role of comparator, what is comparator then? So, comparator like this is also called the counterfactual or the baseline scenario. Then this is typically chosen to reflect the common practice or standard of care in the setting where economic evaluation is set to take place. Sometimes the comparator will be a do nothing or no intervention scenario, still needs to be clearly acknowledged, even if comparator is not that required, but has to be acknowledged. So, which one to choose? It is quite the obvious answer, though it is difficult in the process to identify, but the obvious answer is that all the partial equilibrium evaluations can provide valuable information. They cannot alone guide decision making, as only knowing an intervention's cost or the economic burden of a disease does not indicate an intervention's value of money. For healthcare decisions making, surrounding resource allocations etc. are vital to evaluate both the cost and consequences of the intervention in question and to compare it to a relevant alternative course of action or policy option. That is the role of comparator. But how did we arrive at this conclusion? To know this, let us go for a hypothetical example with the recent cases of COVID-19 crisis. We know that there are different vaccines made by India. We start with Bharat Biotech introducing an intranasal vaccine named Incovac for COVID-19 in India, and we would use a pre-existing injection vaccine, that is called Covaxin, India's first indigenous COVID-19 vaccine, as a comparator to that of the Incovac. Here we say partial economic evaluation when uses cost outcome study, which only evaluate one course of action, that is only if it is Incovac. In case of full economic evaluation, we uses cost benefit analysis evaluating 2 or more alternative courses of action together. Okay. So, these two where both cost and outcomes are expressed in monetary terms. We will again clarify monetary and non-monetary terms in our next week in detail. So, coming to the context once again, okay, economic analysis of newly introduced drugs case we started. So, in that case new vaccine, let us new vaccine start with the case of in Quebec, cost of its cost is of only 5 lakh, whereas the benefit if it is derived as 20 crore. So, then ignoring the another one, since we are dealing with the partial economic analysis, we can interpret or derive the finding, that is the benefits of new vaccine, especially its monetary valuation for its I mean at least the monetary value of its health benefits outweigh its cost. So, favoring its use. Okay. Then in case of full economic evaluation, we go by the new vaccine in Quebec as well as the Covaxin. We start with the same comparison, but we will also check the comparator, that is Covaxin. So, with the cost of 3 lakhs and benefit of 30 crore. Hence, in consequence we derive that the new vaccine when compared to the current standard vaccine in use, that is the comparator, shows that the new vaccine is less effective, okay, and more expensive than the current vaccine, that is leading to opposite policy recommendations. All right. So, it is very clearly spelled. So, hence the partial equilibrium analysis suggested favoring use, whereas the second one is deriving an opposite policy recommendations. So, the full economic evaluation is actually giving a better directions. Hence, what we derive in our conclusion out of this is that we have to choose the full economic evaluation for health economic analysis, especially when the relevant alternative policy options are ignored. The economic analysis can generate a misleading result. That is why we in the initial case we simply go by the the nasal based vaccine, that is here in Quebec. We have derived that this is actually favorable, but indeed as per the full economic analysis, by emphasizing the comparator, the Covaxin which was initially introduced, we find that it has, the new one has led to a misleading result. Okay. Now, answer what we have understood so far, that there are cases A, B, C comparing the cost of cervical cancer screening to the recently introduced papilloma virus vaccine. Another case, and analyzing the cost and benefit of cervical cancer screening, and the third one comparing the cost and benefit of cervical cancer screening to the recently introduced papilloma virus vaccine. Out of these three cases, which one or which statement is actually true? So, out of these three options, so which one is actually correct? Okay. So, B is partial, but A and C are full economic evaluation. Then second option is B and C are partial and A is full economic analysis. Third option, A and B are partial and C is full economic analysis. This you may consider as a MCQ type of question. Okay. MCQ, you have to choose the best option that is really relevant in these three cases. So, in this case you can easily see that the third case where we can derive the result as per the discussion. So, you have to give this answer. I have already given the hint. You can give the best answer. If it is still not dealt, you can discuss with us in a ask a question session or in a query section. All right. So, we learned that full economic analysis or economic evaluation analysis are more optimal way to approach health economic analysis. However, there are differences within the full economic evaluation itself. One should note that efficiency and equity are the criteria that are the focus of economic evaluation as well. While in private healthcare market, efficiency is largely left to market forces. Economic evaluation concerning public healthcare services requires extra efforts as they are limited or no market forces that generate information like prices and profit to enable efficiency judgment. This has led to the development of different sets of evaluation techniques. This has led to the techniques which I have said, like we have to then emphasize type of analysis through their cost or their output or consequence, and we also emphasize the formula. Out of those 5 indicators, first three are mostly used, and we will also clarify the approach is on the cost benefit analysis. The approach is in fact called through cost, it is monetary evaluation, and the output is usually through the willingness to pay approach, WTP, valued in terms of money, but the most important direction for the output is willingness to pay, and the formula is delta C by delta B, okay, the cost and the benefit. Whereas the cost effectiveness analysis, it has so far as cost is concerned, it is in terms of monetary valuation. Then in terms of output, we go by qualitative non-monetary units, that is called life years gained, LYZ, and is defined through delta C by delta E. And whereas the cost utility analysis, CUA, these 3 indicators are actually mostly used, and in case of cost utility, we are supposed to link it to the utility, that is through QALY is there. QALY is basically quality adjusted life years. So, delta C by delta QALY, those figures, if we can able to evaluate, it is really good, and these details will carry it forward, and we will also go through the right example. Or last 2 are less utilized, but its monetary valuation is made, and usually identically in all respects so far as the output is concerned. And here at least the cost alternative are checked. Cost consequence analysis, CCS, this is also called so far as cost is concerned, it is calculated through the set of cost and in their set of consequences, and the formula is considered as disaggregated evaluation approach is followed for the measurement. Each of these types, their advantages and disadvantages along with applied example is discussed in upcoming lectures. We will actually carry it to its respective lecture. Given these 5 techniques, in most books you will find only 3 or maximum 4 regarding how to decide which one is to use. The answer to the above question requires answering a broad range of other questions. The questions can be as follows: are there enough evidence on the outputs of the interventions being compared? If it is yes, or if it is no, accordingly we will decide. If it is yes, then does the output or effect within each intervention are disaggregated in a range of multiple outcomes that are not summarized as a single measure. If it is no, then of course we are actually going by a partial economic evaluation, that is only through the costing study. Then does the output, as I already said, does the output or effects within each intervention are disaggregated in a range of multiple outcomes that are not summarized as a single measure. Then if it is yes, then we will check their CCA, cost consequence analysis. If it is no, then output is summarized in a single unit only. Okay. Hence, if it is no, then we have another question, follow-up question: are the outcomes of both or all the intervention identical in all respects? Again, there are 2 follow-up questions. If it is yes, then we will follow CMA approach, that is cost minimization analysis. Then if it is no, so if they are not similar, can the outcomes of these interventions be valued in monetary terms? This question again asked with yes and no. Again, if it is yes, of course, the standard technique, that is CBA, cost benefit analysis, followed. If it is no, then another question is required. If not in monetary terms, is it valued in single natural unit, which we discussed, or generic measure of health status, that is through utility, called quality adjusted life year or daily adjusted life year. Then this has single natural unit or generic measure of health. The single natural unit is called cost effective analysis, whereas the other one is called cost utility analysis. So, after saying all these details, I hope you must have got the principles, the steps, or through, and their types are clarified through the steps to understand the context. Broadly, there are two types of economic evaluations. One is partial and full economic evaluations. Partial economic evaluation provide useful information, however, the information is not enough for decision making, that might give misleading result, which we have already clarified in the context of vaccination, two vaccination programs which India recently followed, especially during COVID-19. Within full economic evaluations, there are 5 techniques: CBA, CEA, CUA, CMA and CCA. First 3 are considered to be the mostly used evaluation techniques, and each of these techniques differ from each other in some way or the other in their applications. So, what is there in the next lecture? We will discuss the full economic evaluations, and we will identify their features and with their important example, the most important example and the example in practice. Also discuss the advantages and disadvantages, and we also enable appropriate use of each of these tools or techniques, and will interpret for health policy making. Okay. So, these are the standard readings to follow. We have also cited some of them in between. I think it will really clarify to understand health evaluation, and we have tried our best to get the best tools from the latest available sources. So, these are all. I must thank you for your patient listening. I look forward to your next lecture participation. Thank you.